Hey everyone, it's Alison Heikkila. Thanks so much for joining me. It is time for a new collaboration hop with some of my crafty friends to show off the latest release from Spellbinders. I am going to be using the Flower Shower House Mouse stamp, and you can see that I'm showing you that they are cling rubber stamps, and there are 3 sentiments that go along with this adorable focal image. But instead of coloring the entire thing, which I know can sometimes be intimidating for people, I decided that we're going to do a spotlight technique. And not just a spotlight technique. We're going to amp it up a little bit and make it a dimensional spotlight technique. So I've got the Essential Arches cutting dies, and I believe I used the 4th or 5th largest, 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th largest arch. And we are going to cut out that little mouse. Look how cute he is. Oh, actually, I think that's Monica. That's her name. There's names for all of the house mouse mice, and the littlest one is Monica. So I'm pretty sure that that's her because she's tiny and she gets into lots of trouble. So I had stamped this with Nocturne VersaFine Clair ink on Strathmore Smooth Bristol Cardstock, and now you can see that I used that Essential Arch die to cut out the area that I want to color. Now, if you don't want to cut out the piece from your focal image, you don't have to do that. You can simply use whatever shape you want to just use like a pencil to outline it and then color in that area that you want highlighted. And then just leave the rest blank. This is a great way to kind of get started with house mouse coloring. They can be a little intimidating. Before we keep going, my camera just wouldn't focus on the colors, but I'm using beige, natural beige, and oatmeal for the skin of the mouse. That's where we're going to start coloring. And natural beige is the new name for that color. It was number 71. They recently changed it to natural beige as opposed to the old name. So we're going to start with that. But again, if you don't want to die cut the shape out to highlight your piece, you don't have to. Just choose whatever shape you want. It could be a circle, it could be a hexagon, it could be an arch like this. Use a pencil and then color whatever is inside of that pencil line, and then you can always erase it later. It's just a fun way to kind of get started with coloring. It's a fun way, even if you are an expert colorist, to just highlight a certain area. Maybe you don't have time to do the whole thing. Maybe you really just want to highlight a certain area, and then this is just it looks really cool when it's done. It makes it really stand out, makes your eye go right to that area. You can even do multiple spots. Perhaps you want to highlight that little mouse and then the larger one. You can do 2 different arches or 2 different circles, whatever. But it's a fun way to color, and I don't do it too often. It's a great time saver too. So if you don't have, a whole lot of time to just sit and color, pick a little area that you want to show off and just do that spot. And it looks really cool in the end. So you can see that I start off with the natural beige color, then I work to oatmeal, then to beige, and then I work my way back. I've got a piece of scratch paper there on the side just to rub off the excess darker colors because it does get on the marker. It doesn't affect the marker in any way, but if I want to lighten up the color a little bit, then I use a scratch piece of paper. I've got pale rose next, and I'm going to use that for the tongue, the nose, and the cheeks of the mouse. Now, it's going to look pretty harsh at first, but we're going to go back in with that natural beige and just kind of smooth everything out. And it'll make it nice and pale, but it'll still give it that rosy appearance, which is so cute. Next up, I believe we're going to start with the fur. Yep, so I've got gray brown, cool gray 3, and light gray. I have all of the numbers for these markers listed below in my description box. All of the information is also on my blog. So it's going to be, forgive me, it's a little tricky to see what I'm doing here. When I'm doing the fur, I like to have my marker pointing straight up or pretty close to straight up when I'm doing the fur because I want the brush tip to be super fine. This goes for when I'm using Copics as well. I try to keep my marker straight up because I want the fur to be really thin. I don't want to go heavy with it. You want it to be light and airy, not dense and thick. So I'm starting off here with the darkest color. Before, when we did the skin, I started off with the lighter shade first and worked my way to dark and then back again. Here we're doing the opposite. I feel like I just get a better result when I do it this way. Play with whatever technique you want. Obviously, there's no right, there's no wrong way to do this. This is just my preferred way. I kind of block in those dark, shadowy areas first, and then I work my way to the lighter area, which would typically be the belly or the back, depending on which position the mouse is in. So here you can see I'm kind of scribbling in that lightest shade, and then I'm going to work my way back to the darker colors again, making sure that those shadow areas really do pop, because you don't want it to be all one shade of gray. You want to have some definition there. But keeping the brush up and light and area really helps to define those fine hairs that are on these mice. These stamps are super detailed, so you want to take some time and give it some care. So now I have, I believe that's green-gray. This is such a nice color. And I'm not even going to use multiple colors. It was really hard for me to only use one shade of green on these lavender stems, but they're so small and we're doing such a small area that I decided, you know what, Al, you can just do one color. If you want to do more than that, you can. Now we're going to do the floral. I've got 3 shades of like a grayish grapey color, but I only wind up using 2. I start off with the pale violet, and we'll wind up using plum mist, but the darkest shade we really just don't need because those little lavender flowers are so small. Again, if you want to use 3 shades, you certainly can, but I find that once I added the plum mist to it and then went back with the pale violet, it blended enough where I have multiple shades, and I just didn't need that darkest color anymore. You'll see in a moment that it's just not necessary. So there you go. I'm taking away that plum gray because it's just, I'm going to try and hold it up and focus it. You just don't need it. They're tiny. And you won't have to sit through all of those florals being colored. But look at how sweet that is. I really like those shades of purple. Okay, so now we have platinum brown and pale gray. And we're going to be working on the ground. I thought about making the ground brown, but I don't know. I just didn't want to. I went with gray this time. And I went with warmer grays because I went with cool grays for Monica Mouse's fur. So I didn't want them to blend with her fur. So that's why I went with warm grays. You could have gone with neutral grays. Again, you could have gone with brown. You could have gone with green, whatever you want. In fact, in the picture that's on the packaging, it's actually a purple ground. So do whatever you want. But I thought that it would be nice to do the gray. I wanted those colors to really pop since it's such a small area that we're coloring. So I started again with the darker shade and then I'm blending it out with my lighter shade. Just kind of making a nice, variation in color. Not going too crazy. It's such a cute little mouse. So after this, we're going to be coloring the background with haze blue. And again, you won't have to sit through all of this, but I just wanted you to see the beginnings of it. So this hop is not sponsored by Spellbinders, but each month a bunch of us get together and we show off some of the latest new products from Spellbinders. And there is a playlist that you can take a look at. It is, of course, linked below in my description so that you can see everybody that's involved with the hop. So I took that same Essential Arch die and I die cut some pale blue cardstock. I think it was 6 times just to get it stacked up. And the reason I did so many is because it's a fairly thin cardstock. It's certainly not heavy enough to be like a card base. If it were, then I would probably have done just like 3. But since it's a thinner weight, I decided to go with 6 so that I could pop up that piece and make it really stand out. And I used the blue because if you look at it from the side, it looks cute. It's different from it just being white. And I thought it was a fun addition. It works really well with the haze blue. I'm cutting down a piece of patterned paper from the Carta Flora No. 4 paper pad. I thought it worked really well with the image that we colored and the colors that we used for it. And look how cute that is. I decided that I wanted to trim down that main image. It's just too big. There's so much white space. And I tend to leave a lot of white space when I first start coloring these house mouse stamps because I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with the rest of it. But you could see that I'm using my Tonic Guillotine paper trimmer and I wanted to do a 1/4 inch off of each side just to make sure that it was even and it stayed center. So I kind of went halfway through, so I guess that's an 1/8, and then another 1/8 on the other side and flipped it around, etc., etc. I didn't love those straight corners though, especially because we used that arch die for our focal image. So I grabbed a super old corner rounder from EK Success. Are these even still available anymore? I have no idea. You probably have a corner rounder in your stash. You can also use a pair of scissors if you want to. In fact, because I'm trying to do this and not hit my camera while I'm doing it, I don't wind up chomping those corners very well. You could see that last one was kind of a mess. So I grabbed some scissors and I'll wind up fixing that in a moment, just because it didn't look so good. I've got my Essential scissors from Uniquely Creative, excuse me. Those are great scissors. Have you guys seen them yet? If you've watched my videos recently, you've probably seen them in those videos. They were at Creativation, and I'm super excited for them because it was their first time there. They're from Australia, which is pretty rad. Anyway, back to the card. So now you can see that I've fixed those corners for the most part, trimming it just a little bit more, and I'm much happier with it now. Now I'm choosing one of the sentiments from the Flower Shower stamp set, and I really like the Enjoy the Little Things because that's what little Monica Mouse is doing. But you can see that it's too long for the space that I've allotted for it. So instead of like putting it on a strip, I grabbed my Morning Mist VersaFine Clair ink. It's my favorite ink for not only stamping house mouse designs, but also for sentiments because I used Nocturne for it off camera to get started. So now I'm only inking up part of that sentiment. I inked up the Enjoy the, and I just wiped the excess off with my finger. You can use a stamp chamois or whatever if you want. And then I'm going to put Little Things ... on the bottom. I'm stamping it off on that same piece of scrap paper just to make sure that I don't have any excess because that wouldn't have looked good and it would have really ruined what we just did. So I'm removing any excess ink there with my finger again and stamping that carefully, and that looks really cute. We could have used Nocturne ink again, but I just wanted it to be soft. I didn't want it to be too strong. So the Morning Mist was the right color. So now I'm just going to glue all of these layers together so that I can pop everything up and get our card built. All right, you can see how nice and thick that is. It's going to stand proud of the card really nicely. And since it's all done with cardstock, it's not going to flatten out or anything if I were to mail this card. I grabbed Tumbled Glass Distress ink with my cottontail blending brush from the Rabbit Hole Designs and just went around that edge because you know I cannot leave that edge white. It's very rare when I do. So now I'm just going to adhere my patterned paper to that card base. It's such a pretty pattern. It's a nice periwinkle color too. I thought it was really pretty. Moving on to the layer above that, and then we'll finish off with our little Monica Mouse. She's just so cute. She's having such a good time with those flowers. So I hope that you make sure that you hop along to check out everybody that's in the hop. You can also check out past hops through the playlist, and then let us know what you think. What are you excited about? Are you somebody that likes to color house mouse? Does it intimidate you at all? I do have some other house mouse coloring videos on my channel, so you can definitely check those out. But that's our card for today. I didn't want to add anything else because I really just wanted to highlight that one little section. Make sure you check out all of the information in the description box below, and I will see you all again very soon. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. Be well, stay safe, peace out.